What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds, a YouTube channel for Kings fans by Kings fans. If you are a Kings fan, make sure you smash up that like button down below. And if you'd like to join the Royal family with Calvin and I, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. We are live at Punch Bowl Social tonight, having a great time. We got a bowl of punch. We encourage you to get one too. We're having a blast. Even though the Kings lost the game tonight, we're still having fun, and we want to discuss the trade. So before we jump into that, Calvin, anything that you want to touch on before we dive into this Haliburton for Sabonis trade?
Oh no, I think that's what everybody wants to talk about. I mean,
all right,
that's
let's talk
the
about
burning
it.
issue right now.
The Sacramento Kings announce a blockbuster today. They are officially trading Tyrese Haliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson to the Indiana Pacers for Domantas Sabonis, Justin Holiday, Jeremy Lamb, and a future second-round pick, which has been announced as a 2023 second-round pick. I know for me, Calvin, I'm going to have to learn how to spell this guy's entire name, but what does this mean for the Sacramento Kings?
Well, in the short term, it means that they got an all-star level player, an all-star caliber player who fits a very important position of need for them. He's a starting power forward, something that this team's been looking for a long time. Long term, that question's a little bit harder to answer. You now bring in the best, officially the best player that De'Aaron Fox has ever been a teammate with. So it's almost like the pressure is mounting on this team now even more than it was before this season. I think there's still a lot of work left to be done here, but we talked about it so much leading up to this trade. The Kings needed more talent on this roster. The team currently constructed wasn't good enough. They had to make some type of move and shake things up, and they had to take a little bit of a risk, meaning they had to go after a top-tier player, or at least a top-tier available player. They did that. It hurts to give away somebody like Tyrese Haliburton.
It really does.
But I think the Kings were backed into this corner that their hand was forced a little bit in this move. The only way they were going to improve this roster from a talent standpoint was to trade Tyrese or De'Aaron Fox. The question is, who was the right person to trade and who was the right person to keep?
Yeah, and honestly, that's a question that we are not going to know the answer to for at least a couple years. I, for one, am a huge Tyrese Haliburton fan. I did not want the Sacramento Kings to trade him. I thought he was a great piece for this roster. If you just look at his upward trajectory as far as talent and skill set and the way he was trending, it seemed like this kid had his sights on the stars. He was going to be an all-star, but like you mentioned, the Kings traded this guy for an all-star, not just a one-time all-star, but a two-time all-star in Domantas Sabonis. They addressed one of the needs they had on this team as far as rebounding. Domantas Sabonis is an incredible rebounder, and they were able to kind of figure out that guard spot and transition talent from that guard spot to another position of need. The Kings officially chose De'Aaron Fox. I want to say chose De'Aaron Fox as their corner piece moving forward, and De'Aaron Fox rewards the Kings with his play tonight, Calvin.
Well, rewards them how? I mean, he shows that he can still score, I guess, which is good. He shows that the ankle isn't maybe that messed up. But I don't know. It just leaves me with more questions than it does answers at this point. You know, I don't know what the deal was with De'Aaron Fox sitting. Did he go to the front office and say, you guys pick me or I'm gone? Like, this is my team or I'm out of here sort of situation. I'm not playing until you convince me that you think this is my team sort of a thing. Either way, it's not good. It's not a good situation.
Yeah.
But
the players have so much control now.
They do. They have an incredible amount of control. And if Domantas Sabonis comes in, you know, the next couple months of the season and is a 20-10 guy, the Kings start to win a little bit more, a lot of people are going to be encouraged. But only time will tell on that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a puzzling trade, but we all agree something needed to happen. I see you guys in the chat. Leo from Cowbell Kingdom absolutely loved this trade. I don't think he hated this trade. I could be wrong, but I saw a video by him saying, finally, the Kings did something right. Finally, they did something for a change. He loves
this trade. He loves this trade.
Yeah, we've had conversations with him in the past. He's been an anti-tank guy. He wants the Kings to add talent around Fox, and that's exactly what they did tonight. So I don't think you could exactly say that the Kings or Leo is unhappy with this trade because they did everything they could to add talent around Fox.
Yeah, and if you're one of those people that wanted the Kings to lose games to gain a better draft pick or a better chance at a draft pick, the Kings potentially could still do that while they pull off this trade at the same time. We're going to talk about it, in a little bit, probably not for too long, but we'll touch on the CJ McCollum trade to the New Orleans Pelicans. That team just potentially got a lot better as well, and they're pretty much the one team that's fighting with Sacramento for that 10th play-in spot right now. So the Kings potentially landed a player that makes them better and still stayed in the same draft positioning at the same time, which, I don't know, some people will consider that a win. Some people will say that's not a good thing.
It depends for me, like, how long Sabonis takes to get to this team in the first place, and then two, how long it takes for him to be integrated in this offense, right? Like, how are him and Fox going to work together? Is it going to take a half a season to figure it out? And maybe they start out fresh next season with a top draft pick. Or are they still trying to fight for that playoff push right now?
Right.
Like, is Vivek like, no, I don't want to tie the record. No, I don't want to tie that record. We need to do whatever we can to make the playoffs this season. We talk about play-in. Everybody wants to make the play-in, but play-in does not equal playoffs.
No,
Even
it
if
doesn't.
you do make the play-in, you still have to win a couple games before you make that elusive playoff spot.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I mean, I feel like you can look at both sides of the coin on that one. Like, should the goal be to make the play-in tournament? No, absolutely not. I still think there's some positives from making the play-in tournament, though, for this Kings team specifically. We're talking about a team that looked pretty much broken and destroyed, a week ago or 2 weeks ago in that blowout loss against the Celtics. De'Aaron Fox is sitting. They're at a crossroads. They don't know where to go next. They haven't made the playoffs in 15 years. Now you finally make a significant trade. You bring in an all-star level player. I'm not talking about from the fans' perspective, but I'm talking about from the players' perspective. Just to play in a play-in tournament game would be a completely different atmosphere than any of those guys have played in before.
Yep.
None of those guys have any playoff experience. So to be in that environment, the play-in tournament is not the goal, but it's a stepping stone. You kind of feel like you're going in the right direction at that point. I'm not arguing that I want the team to make the play-in tournament for that reason, but I think if you're a player, there are definitely some things that you can draw on from that experience. Look at the Phoenix Suns. Again, a very different situation, but they came out of nowhere in the bubble, didn't make the playoffs, but they still got a part of what it felt like. They got a little taste of what it felt like, those high-energy games. And then they went on next season to do incredibly well. So you can build off of stuff like that.
You can. Jeff the Lefty says, is it a move just to make a move?
Yeah, in a way it is. But I think that the Kings were, again, forced into this situation. Like they didn't really have the luxury of just saying, we could potentially make these deals for guys like Ben Simmons and Domantas Sabonis. And we know our fans really want a good team to cheer for, a playoff caliber type team. But you know what? Middle of the season, we're done trying. We're just going to punt on this season. Some people would have liked that.
Yeah.
But I think it's the right mentality. I mean, they're not still expecting to be a good team this year. They're not expecting a deep playoff run with this trade. but you still have to lay down a good foundation to build on for the future. And if you wait too long for that, then you continue to set yourself back. You can make a move here at the deadline, have the rest of the season for those core guys to kind of get used to each other, go into your offseason with a totally different program of expectations, draft needs, all that stuff, and then start fresh again next year.
Are you still trending hashtag Hey Monty at this point?
Oh yeah, Hey Monty I'm putting it on billboards here in Sacramento. We're making T-shirts. His work is not done. His job is not done at all. So hey true. Monty, step one is complete. We got a lot more of this book to write.
His job's not done until we're making the playoffs.
Absolutely.
And you talked about some positives, and I want to touch on positives a little bit. And I also want to give a shout out to Asha down there. Thank you so much, Asha. We will have super chats enabled soon, but we appreciate all your support. So thank you. You are the #1 Kings fan. But anyways, I want to talk about some positives because honestly, today when you came and told me I was setting all this up and you're like, the Kings traded Tyrese Haliburton, I was devastated. I felt like a person that had finally gotten over a horrible past relationship, and I was like, okay, I'm going to love again. I'm going to try. I have a favorite player now, and he is on the Kings, and that was Tyrese Haliburton. And they ripped my heart out today by trading Tyrese Haliburton. But I do want to say, the more and more that I thought about this, and don't get me wrong, I think Tyrese Haliburton is going to be an incredible player. I think he's probably going to be the best player that was in that entire deal 5 years from now. I really do. But I want to look at positives here. The more and more I look at it, I say, okay, well, the Sacramento Kings, they didn't give up any future potential, right? Tyrese Haliburton has future potential, but what I mean by that was they didn't give up future draft picks.
Yep.
They didn't handicap themselves by taking on unnecessary salary for the future. They got a 2-time All-Star who's on a very reasonable contract. They were able to dump a contract in Buddy Hield without including any first-round picks or anything like that.
Yep.
I think it's a good deal for the Kings. I really do. And funny enough, Jeremy Lamb is included in this deal, right? Monty McNair was the assistant general manager with the Houston Rockets when they drafted Jeremy Lamb in Houston. They drafted him with the 12th pick in 2012, and they trade him for James Harden.
Nope.
You fast forward to 2020, the Kings select Tyrese Haliburton with the 12th pick in the NBA draft. They traded him today for a 2-time All-Star in Domantas Sabonis.
Yep. Coincidence?
What did we talk about today, right? Like, do coincidences really exist? I'm not sure. But there was a coincidence in that, and there's also a coincidence in the fact that De'Aaron Fox returned to action today.
Yes. Strange coincidence.
A very strange coincidence. Does that mean that De'Aaron Fox gave the Sacramento Kings an ultimatum? I really don't know. But he didn't want to play. The Kings drafted back-to-back drafts replacement or somebody at the same position as him. All the Kings fans, myself included, fell in love with these guys. And De'Aaron Fox pulled the ultimate power move. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But he got the help now that he needs. Tyrese Haliburton is out of town.
Yeah, it's like we said earlier in the show, the pressure is really on now. The pressure is on Fox squarely. A lot of people still believe in him, I think. A lot of Kings fans do. But I feel as though Tyrese Haliburton really was starting to capture the heart and the soul of a lot of Kings fans and a lot of people in this community. So now they double down on Fox. They give him a solid teammate to go with, somebody that's not a backcourt mate that has to take the ball out of his hands potentially. pressure's really on him now. He has to take his game to that next level, that all-star level that we all assumed he was going to be at this year anyway. Hasn't gotten there, hasn't come even close, really. He's got a lot to live up to at this point. Yeah, especially if he's the one that really orchestrated this. If he went to the Kings front office and said, you guys got to get rid of Tyrese. This is my team. I need somebody that's not going to, take the ball out of my hands in the backcourt. I need this to be my team. I need to lead them, all that stuff. If that's the case, responsibility is solely on his shoulders now.
Maybe it has nothing to do with Tyrese. Maybe it just
It might not.
To do with, hey guys, I'm your franchise player and I want more on this team. I want more talent. You spent the last 2 drafts drafting guys that play the same position as me. We've seen this in football. We saw it with Aaron Rodgers. We saw it with Brett Favre. We've seen it with some of these other players. I need help right now. You want this to be a good team, get players that help me, not guys that play when I'm not on the court. Yes, we've seen Tyrese Haliburton play with De'Aaron Fox this season, but he hasn't been that effective while they're both on the court.
Right.
De'Aaron Fox needed more help, and he got that today.
He did, 100%.
He really did. So moving on here, we want to talk about a couple other trades that went down in the NBA. Charis Levert was traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers in a very puzzling deal. I would have loved to have Levert on this Sacramento Kings team.
Yeah, once again, the Kings were caught sleeping on this one, man.
We talked about how they need wing depth, how they need more shooting. The Kings traded away their best 2 shooters today in this deal. We saw Levert go yesterday. Maybe it was kind of a domino effect and all these guys are getting traded. We're going to talk about McCollum in a little bit here. Yep. He was traded as well. Maybe today was a result of the Kings saying, everybody's making moves. We need to choose our chair before all the chairs are pulled out and we have nothing to sit on.
Yeah, I think that's probably how a lot of trade deadlines work, how a lot of this stuff comes down. Obviously, you have your eye on your top few prized pieces, and you do the best to make a deal, but you can't end up getting anything done. And then it's just sad to see that a guy like Charis Levert could have been obtainable for what he was actually traded for. Like, we're over here thinking it's going to take De'Aaron Fox to get him and Miles Turner, and yet they end up getting him for a couple second-round picks and a guy that's not going to play the rest of the season.
Yeah, and Ricky Rubio, which is truly incredible. It really is. And on that note, let's talk about this deal for CJ McCollum. CJ is shipped to the New Orleans Pelicans for Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Tomas Satoransky, and a protected 2022 first-round pick that is, I guess, in the 5 to 14 range. Otherwise, it will be conveyed next year. In return, the Pelicans receive CJ McCollum, Larry Nance Jr., and Tony Snell. It's clear that the Blazers are rebuilding at this point as they seem to just be shipping everybody out.
It's clear they're trading people. It's not clear at all what they're doing. I don't know what Portland is doing.
What does this mean for Damian Lillard?
Man, that's the question that everybody wants to know right now. I feel like a lot of people are assuming that this is the writing on the wall for him to finally say that he wants out of Portland. But who knows? I mean, maybe this is the same thing we were just talking about with Fox, in that he's over there sitting there thinking, I love CJ, I love playing with him, but we can't get over the hump together. So let's clear his salary off the books. Let's go get some better players. Let's try to remake this team. That's really the only logical explanation I can come up with for what Portland is doing, because these deals they're making do not make sense from a paper standpoint. The Norman Powell deal still bothers me. I just don't understand it at all.
It's really crazy. I mean, all I can say is happy to be a Kings fan at this point.
That's
at least
another guy that the Kings could have really used, Norman Powell.
That's true. That is true. I can look at these multiple ways, right? Like, that's a guy I wanted. Why didn't you get him? But at the same time, I'm like, the Kings could have been the Blazers and they could have been selling everybody for nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Blazers are doing at this point, and it's really difficult. But I want to take a quick break to shout out all my Kings fans that are watching. Thank you guys for supporting us. We really appreciate it. We just broke through 1,000 followers this week, or subscribers, and we really appreciate all your support. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys so much. If you really are a Kings fan, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if it's your first time to the channel, or hey, maybe it's your 10th time to the channel, but you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button down below. It really helps Calvin and I to produce more awesome Kings content for you all. We are currently at Punch Bowl Social, live post-game, celebrating this Kings loss, but we celebrate either way. We will also be here tomorrow night, so make sure you guys all join us at Punch Bowl Social. We're just having a great time here, having fun, and hey, maybe we'll have another deal to break down tomorrow.
You never know.
So another big news today, Calvin. Bradley Beal is out with wrist surgery. What do you think about this? What do you think about the timing, and what does this mean for the Wizards?
Well, the timing is just really interesting. It's another person that, we were starting to hear their name mentioned in a lot of trade rumors. I mean, Bradley Beal's name has come up pretty much every year for the past 3 or 4 seasons around the trade deadline. But one thing that's always been consistent with him is he's always said, I want to stay in Washington. So maybe he has this surgery done so that he doesn't get traded. He wants to stay in Washington, cash out, get that big contract.
We've heard about Spencer Dinwiddie. Apparently nobody on the team likes him, and he needs to be traded soon, I guess. What do you feel about that?
Perhaps, I don't know. Washington is another team, much like Sacramento, that's kind of just been in this endless cycle lately. They've been able to get better players than Sacramento. They've had Russell Westbrook, John Wall, Bradley Beal, all these guys, but they haven't really done anything with them. A lot of injury problems as well.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, they have some really nice young players, and certainly they looked great early on this season. It looked like the trade for Montrezl Harrell and Kyle Kuzma and KCP was exactly what they needed. They were in the top 4 of the Eastern Conference. It was very early on, but they were playing really, really solid. Lately, they've just had a lot of injuries, and I feel like they're kind of in the same position as the Kings in that they don't really know what style or what their identity is. They're constantly changing new players big name players, high level scorers. Shout out David Allison in the building. See you, bud. So I don't know what they're doing either. But I think at the end of the day, they really want to keep Bradley Beal if at all possible. Even if it means they don't improve their team, they just want to keep him. And he seems to want to stay there. So
yeah, it's a real interesting situation. Ivan, if I were to guess, I would say Holmes is more likely to be traded tomorrow, and that's simply based on the fact that he was a late scratch for tonight's game.
But again, you never know. We all thought De'Aaron Fox was maybe going to get traded because he's been sitting so many games. Yep. Turns out they traded the other guy instead. So we'll see.
Yeah. So my question for you, Calvin, does this trade that happened today, what does this mean as far as Ben Simmons?
What does it mean for Ben Simmons? Well, unfortunately, Ben Simmons is at the mercy of Daryl Morey at this point. And both of these guys seem like they're not backing down at all. Daryl Morey, we all know he wants James Harden. I think he's going to wait until the last possible moment when he basically knows ultimately that he can't get James Harden anymore. And that's when you're going to see Ben Simmons move. I mean, we said it a couple of weeks ago on this show that it's very possible you don't see Ben Simmons traded at all this season.
Yeah.
Because they're playing with house money, Philadelphia is.
They really
They're surging up the standings right now. Joel Embiid is a legit, he's the front runner, I think, for MVP right now this season. They've got everything going for them, while Ben Simmons is just kind of being swept under the rug. And I feel like Daryl Morey is kind of sitting there laughing a little bit like, haha, my team is still good, and you haven't played all year long. and we're taking money out of your pocket.
We talked about it at dinner time, right? I was like, if I'm Morey, I'm not trading him. I'm telling him to sit out for 4 years. I don't care. But
I mean, Daryl Morey's probably made up his mind. If I don't get James Harden, I'm not trading Ben Simmons right now.
But if you're the Kings, are you still interested? Do you still see a need for Ben Simmons? And what are you willing to give up?
I still see a need, definitely. That's the question now, is what do you give up? I mean, I don't foresee...
Fox is all you got left.
I don't foresee it being doable that Daryl Morey is going to accept a trade that doesn't involve De'Aaron Fox at this point. So now do you really want to take Tyrese Haliburton and De'Aaron Fox and trade them away for Domantas Sabonis and Ben Simmons with the rest of this team? I mean, either way you do it, again, there's still more that needs to be done, but I don't know. I would be very cautious about trading Fox for Ben Simmons now after this Tyrese trade.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, it's honestly a game of 3D chess between all these GMs. You know, all we've been hearing as far as trade rumors is Fox is traded, Fox. Fox was the best player on this team, 100%. I'm a huge Tyrese Haliburton fan. I think he has a much higher ceiling than De'Aaron Fox, but I think it's clear that De'Aaron Fox was the best player on this team. So if you are Daryl Morey, or if you're Monty McNair, maybe you're playing a little game here. Maybe it was all along, oh, you want Fox, you want Fox, you want Fox, and they're able to flip a guy like Tyrese Haliburton, who honestly, according to Leo, and Leo's right here, has done nothing in the NBA at this point. It's his second year in the league. It's really his first year starting. He's had some incredible games. I know the 17 assists, the 38 points, all things I love to see. But this guy is technically unproven in the NBA, and he was able to be flipped with a shooter in Buddy Hield that was not very consistent, had a large contract, and they were able to flip both those guys for a two-time All-Star in Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, it's a good trade. I mean, it's hard to swallow right now just because it involves Tyrese Haliburton. But if you really step back and you look at just these players and not, you know, your emotional connection to them as a fan, this trade definitely did a lot of good things for the Kings as a team. But yeah, now we're all sitting here saying, when's the next one, or what is the next move? You know, because there's more to be done here.
Yeah, what's gonna happen next? Because I don't want to lie to you guys, there is a trade that will happen. I don't know what it's gonna be, but I think there has to be at least another deal that happens in the next 2 days.
I think so too. Yeah, I don't expect it to be Ben Simmons. And I'm not really sure what position that puts the Kings in. If you're going to trade Fox for Simmons, I mean, this team is going to be very, very limited in its shooting and scoring. Yeah. If that's the case.
What do you think about Marvin Bagley? I know he's injured right now. Does that make him untradeable at this point, or?
Well, it was hard to see Marvin Bagley being tradable when he wasn't hurt. I mean, the Kings have been trying to trade him for a long time. I think that before he got hurt this most recent time, he was playing better, right?
Yeah.
So he had to have been doing something for his trade value. However, for a guy that is a number 2 overall pick, and really, you know, we expected so much out of him, he's played so far away from that level that I just don't know what the trade value for him is, especially if it's him by himself. Like, he's got to be packaged with somebody else, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I see some guys here in the chat saying Jeremy Grant, potentially. I'm still not on the Jeremy Grant train. I think he makes too much money for exactly what he does. I think he's a good player. But it goes back to that whole adage of, on a shit team, there's always going to be a guy that plays well. Somebody needs to get the points, and he's the guy that's doing it on the Pistons at this point. What do you think about a Holmes for Jeremy Grant deal?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you at this point. I liked Jeremy Grant a lot a couple of weeks ago before any deals had been made. But you're right, he does make a lot of money. He's also eligible for a max contract here very soon. So the Kings would not only have to pay him a bunch of money right when he comes over here, but then if they want to keep him, they have to pay him even more money, most likely. At this point, I'd kind of rather see them go after, 3-and-D role players. Marcus Smart is a person that we've talked about a lot.
I love him.
I think he would be a fantastic add right now for this team.
Ivan wants to know about P.J. Washington.
Yeah, everybody kind of is expecting that to be the next move, but in my opinion, I don't know why you would trade for P.J. Washington now. After you've traded for Sabonis, they play the same position. You've already got a cluster of front court players, whether it's at power forward or at center. The rotation's really, you don't know what it's going to be on any given night. So P.J. Washington is not an option for me at this point. Yeah. Not an option.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Calvin. I know there's a ton of trades we could talk about, but we've covered all of them already. And I think we'll have some more to talk about tomorrow. We will be live again at Punchbowl Social tomorrow night, so make sure you guys join us for that. We'll be talking trades again. But are you ready to move on to Kings Crusade and talk about the next week of Kings action?
Yeah, they play an interesting opponent tomorrow night. Round 2, Groundhog Day.
All right, guys, we are going to take another quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to dive deeper into your Kings next week of basketball action with Kings Crusade.